Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series. Today, we are joined with maybe your third time on here, Anita. So, thank you so much for joining us again, and maybe you can give us a quick background of about what about yourself and what we're going to be talking about, which is related to the motion that you're going to be or that you've brought before the Law Society. I think it's going to be next week that we're up at the AGM.
Sure. Thanks, JP, for having me back on Justice in Pieces. I love to come here, and this is my third time. Come back anytime that you think that I have anything to tell your audience. My name's Anita Szigeti. I'm a lawyer in private practice in Toronto. I have a little firm of 7 people that includes 2 articling students every term, a couple of associates, and we really focus on mental health law litigation. Anytime someone with a mental health issue comes into contact with the legal system, mostly the criminal justice system these days, but we also do tribunal work when people get detained in the hospital or they lose the right to make their own decisions. I do a lot of work in the Court of Appeal for Ontario. I have argued about 250 plus appeals in the Court of Appeal. I think only Brian Greenspan has more, really. It's a ton of Court of Appeal stuff, but to be fair, it's over 33 years at the bar. I do coroner's inquest. I have a particular interest in working on inquests where police have shot someone and trying to make recommendations to prevent that. So that's what I do. And then in terms of the Law Society of Ontario, I have a long-standing and kind of, neutral, independent, objective personal interest in the Law Society and its governance. It doesn't stem from really anything other than I ran for bencher in 2011, and um, in the process of running for bencher, I took it very seriously. There were people who really wanted me to become a bencher in 2011. So I took the project of learning about the Law Society's governments very seriously at the time. And I learned all this stuff that I feel like if I got up and walked away from it, never thought of it again, I just feel like it was a lot of wasted energy. Like it went on for months. I read everything. I filled out all these surveys. I had an opinion about everything that they do. And so I've always just had a sort of an eye on them, not with a view to running for bencher again, but just out of interest. And then I guess earlier this year or late last year, the legal professionals that the Law Society governs, and there are 77,000 of us. I think there are 66,000 lawyer members and 11,000 paralegal members governed by the Law Society, who are legal professionals and licensees. And we learned that at some point in, I think, the summer of 2023, I always get it wrong. So in June of 2023, our former treasurer of the Law Society, Jacqueline Horvat, who's now Superior Court judge, signed a contract with the now former CEO of the Law Society, purporting to give her an increase in her salary from about $600,000, which was the base salary she was enjoying at that time, to just under 1 million with an additional $267,000 adjustment in sort of a pensions lump sum payment. So we're talking about in effect doubling her compensation from 600,000 to about 1,200,000 plus. And that the former treasurer, now Superior Court judge, Jacqueline Horvat, signed that contract alone without taking that potential increase to the board of directors for the Law Society that we call convocation for a vote, which is, of course, what the Law Society's existing bylaws prescribed, because that's how CEO's compensation gets determined in every single organization that has a governing board. Many of us have sat on governing boards of various not-for-profit or other organizations, and I don't know of anyone where the chair of the board signs a contract with staff and unilaterally decides how much their salaries will be increased. And so people got really, really, really angry about that, and rightfully so.
So since then, I mean, I know it's kind of had its ebbs and flows. There's been reports, discussion. There was a recent election for treasurer a couple of months ago where three different candidate or two candidates and the current and then reelected treasurer. So it came up again at that point, and now it's kind of gone away. But you do have a motion that you brought. Now, before we kind of talk about the substance of the motion, I know you had posted some some challenges of even just getting the motion
Right.
to the AGM. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that process, and then we can talk about the actual item or on the agenda now.
Well, thanks for asking about the motion. So I will say, JP, like I have a funny history. I guess some weird history with the Law Society, odd little tidbits here or there. None of it, personally directed at me blissfully, no like discipline history or anything like that. But in 1994, when I was a second year lawyer, that was the last time that I brought a motion to the Law Society AGM. I was just a young person. I was really young when I went to law school, so I was like 20. And at this time, I'm pretty young still, and I'm very poor. I'm, running around with a plastic bag like from the grocery store, with my papers in it. But I brought a motion in 1994 by myself. Um, to the Law Society to stop the reprehensible practice at that time of having articling students working for free. So back then, articling students were working for free. In fact, some of them were paying their articling principals so that they could get called to the bar in this country. And my own mother was a foreign trained physician, an internationally trained physician who requalified in this country and was forced to work for 2 years as an intern without any compensation. And so I just had all this stuff in my head, and I just sort of blew in there and said, this is a, human rights violation and it's discriminatory and you have to stop it. Now, as I like to say, I'm very pleased that the Law Society has adopted the substance of that motion and fixed the situation literally 30 years later. Like just last year or 2 years ago, they finally outlawed that practice of letting people work for free as students. So I have now brought another motion to the Law Society. If they wait 30 years to pass that, I'll be dead. So I think we're going to need them to work faster this time. But this is my second motion. And I don't know actually how many licensees know this, but any lawyer or paralegal governed by the Law Society of Ontario is absolutely free to bring any motion to the annual general meeting. So there's a once annual general meeting. I thought it was always held in May, but now it's September and it'll be held September the 18th this year. And we can all just bring a motion. The only sort of criterion for a motion is that it has to relate, fairly loosely, but it has to relate to the business of the Law Society, which makes sense. It has to have something to do with something they do. But honestly, there's a million motions I could think of to bring, and I've settled on one because, I think it's really relevant, and I think that there are compelling reasons for this motion. And I frankly cannot think of a single reason to deny me my motion. That's not to say it won't be denied, but I can't think of a principled reason to tell me I can't get this information. So the motion on September 18th, oh, well, how do you go about filing a motion? So you just, set out what you want, but you need to find 10 licensees who have not been suspended. So that's also like a weird conversation, right? You got to call your friends and go, hi, just to be sure you're not suspended or anything, because I need you to sign this thing. And so it says, bring the motion with 10 licensees support evidence by their signature. So I did that. I signed my motion. I got 10 colleagues to sign with me, but my motion was rejected at first because they counted 11 signatures in total. So apparently it has to be exactly 10, but that includes the mover's signature. So I like to say I had too much support for my motion. So at first it was rejected. I will pause just to give a shout out to Jim Varro, though. Jim Varro, you should interview Jim Varro. Jim Varro is acting as secretary now. He was previously for like 23 years or something, the secretary of the Law Society. And this man knows everything, and he's knowledgeable and he's decent and he's helpful. And it's not his fault that what he had to point out to me was a very silly thing. He had to point out to me that I had too many signatures. So we had to redo it. Somebody got crossed off. And Karen Seeley, actually, who you may know, she sacrificed herself at the altar of my motion and literally physically cross herself out, but kudos to her. She was there. She was prepared to support. So we finally did file the motion, and it's the only motion the Law Society has received this year, which I find, given the turmoil around the CEO scandal, I find it quite remarkable that out of 77,000 people, I'm the only one with any questions for the profession. It doesn't surprise me about me because if there's, trouble to be made of the good kind, that I'll be there holding my hand up to make it. But I don't understand why, nobody else necessarily has any questions for the society, apart from people are afraid. This is our regulator and they have real power over us. And I think most licensees want to fly under the radar. They'd rather not, make themselves the focal point of the attention of their regulator, and I think that's sensible. So people have said to me that they want to speak out, but they're afraid of a sort of personal retaliation, whether they might be audited or the Law Society will come after them, or they'll be accused of saying defamatory things or of being uncivil. So, one is careful how one phrases it, but the bottom line is I brought a motion. And it's the motion for a lot of financial disclosure, but it's a very simple motion. So, bottom line, and if you want to know more details, I'll tell you, but the bottom line is I'm asking the Law Society to disclose to licensees, to the members, and to the public the sort of global cost to the members and to the Law Society of this CEO salary fiasco, what I like to call the CEOSS, the CEO salary scandal, which I also like to pronounce chaos, because I think you can pronounce it that way. And I heard you, JP, in the Wicked Women interview saying you like the acronym Wicked, so I just wish to take full credit for that. I did come up with that. And I think chaos is right up there. CEOSS, all caps, chaos. I want to know what it's cost us all the dues and fees paying licensees.
So, Anita, how does it work then on the 18th when it comes to your motion? Who do you get to make submissions on it? Does anyone get to make submissions on who gets to vote? Do you know anything about that process?
Yeah, so I really have no idea. I poor Mr. Varro is the acting secretary. He's the one who knows everything, and I promised recently to stop bothering him because I was like sending emails I get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning is when I start my workday. So like 5 in the morning, I was like, "Hello, Mr. Jim Varro. I don't understand what's happening like at the motion because I really don't, and I've looked all over the place for it. It's in the bylaws. So all I know is it's online, it's virtual. If you want to attend, any licensee, paralegal or lawyer who's not suspended can come, but you have to register. So if you go to Law Society's website, all you have to do is give them your name and Law Society number. I guess they check to see if you're suspended. You can register, and if you register, you get let into the Zoom and you get to vote on the motion. So it's pretty cool. It's the annual general meeting. It's our meeting. It's the professions meeting. It's the members meeting. It's not convocation. It's not the monthly meeting of the benchers. It is our general meeting for the licensee. So I really want people to come. I was making a joke about, I'm all over social media going, please join me at this year's annual general meeting of the Law Society, as if like, please come to my birthday party and there'll be hors d'oeuvres. But I really hope that people will come and log on because you can vote. As to whether or not you can talk, it sounds like you can. So it sounds like I will have, because I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds like I'll have an opportunity to introduce the motion, speak to it. No one will tell me for how long. It sounds like the treasurer is in charge of how long I get to speak. So I guess when he's had enough, he'll just tell me to shut up and I'll just keep going till he does that. I don't know. And then it sounds like the floor has to open for debate. So it sounds like any licensee or member who's registered and is able to vote can debate my motion, and then we vote on it. So that's what I think will happen. It is published. My motion is published. The Law Society has a web page devoted to the annual general meeting of 2025. And my motion all by itself is sitting there nicely. Blissfully, it's a very long motion. It's got a lot of subheadings because there's a lot of things I want. But that's what I understand is going to happen. And it does sound like the treasurer has full control over, when he's had enough and wants to cut off debate, or he may, I think what would be more fair is if he said, we're setting aside this amount of time for debate so that he's not just cutting off something he doesn't like the sound of when it's being said. And I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know what people may think. But what I do know is that I've heard from a lot of people with a lot of support for my motion, and I have not heard one person provide me a principled reason or any reason to suggest why the motion should be denied. Not one person has said to me that this is not a motion that has merit that should be granted. I think everyone agrees that if there's any justice in the world and if the Law Society had the slightest interest in being transparent and accountable to its members, it would just tell us how much it's paid for all these things that they had to pay out because of this chaos.
So with that in mind, I mean, what else is on the like I guess the agenda, so to speak? I mean, does the Law Society have like their annual report and somebody introduces it and informational pieces and then they go into, I mean, the one motion there? Because I would imagine, I suppose that the benchers will be able to vote as well as part of that. I mean, I would imagine they're still ordinary members, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you can correct me on that. And so if people aren't showing up, then if they're going to say no, we don't want to produce this for whatever reason. That may carry the day, right? I mean, I don't think I've ever been to an AGM, so I don't know how much the turnout is of our 77,000 plus members. How many members do you need to pass a vote, et cetera, et cetera?
I have absolutely no idea. Like I say, JP, last time I did was 1994. I was like in my 20s with my little, plastic shopping bag. I remember standing up. I remember making this impassioned speech. I think they actually like passed it in principle. That's the other thing is even if it passes, and I don't fully get this, I don't think it's binding. So I think this is really ceremony. It's just pomp. I don't, even if it passes and everyone says, way to go, Anita, you're 100% right. Everybody, disclose everything. They can turn around 5 minutes later and go like, we're not gonna. And there's nothing we can do about it. So I don't know how much in the way of teeth this has. But that's not really my purpose. And my purpose is to educate, raise awareness. Plus, I actually want to know the information. So, do the benchers have to be there? My understanding is no, they don't. It's not convocation, so they don't have to be there. Like they don't have to show. But are they still lawyer members of the Law Society, the lawyer benchers and the paralegal members? Are they licensees? They are. And I think that's a very, very important point. So you would think that if they care about this, they would come. And I'm personally very interested to see how some of the benchers that I supported to get into convocation would vote on my motion. I really can't gauge how they will vote. Nobody's spoken to me about it. No one's, asked me about my motion or reached out to me to talk about supporting my motion within convocation. Actually, come to think of it, that's odd, but that's not occurred. So I'm interested to see how the benchers will vote and why. And I'll be interested to hear any opposition to my motion and who it would come from and just what the basis of opposing this motion would be. But to answer your question, the bylaws of convocation or bylaws of the Law Society actually set out the prescribed agenda for every annual general meeting. And the treasurer is chairing the meeting and he does the annual report and the annual financial statement for the Law Society for 2024 is presented. And the annual report was not available when I checked a couple of days ago, but the financial statements were filed by the Audit and Finance Committee at convocation in April. And I actually sat through that presentation and the debate around it. And the financial statement, you know, there's no suggestion. I'm not suggesting that the Law Society mismanages funds generally. This thing that happened was a bad thing, a very bad, irregular thing. And I think it happened for like weird emotional and interpersonal reasons, and the dynamics were toxic. I don't suggest for a minute that the benchers are sitting around, purposefully, defrauding the licensees. So I don't have a concern, a forensic concern about the financial statements. But the financial statements are useless to us for our purposes. If we want to know how much did you pay the image management people, the PR people you hired to rehabilitate your reputation in the wake of this chaos, which is one of the things I want to know. You cannot find that itemized disclosure in that financial statement. So that'll be presented, and then it's on to other business, which, as far as I'm concerned, JP, that as far as I can tell right now, is me and my little motion. And if I didn't bring it, I guess they'd all go home after going like, here's some, general buckets of numbers.
Yeah, and so with those, I guess, general buckets of numbers, like in their annual reports or when the, I mean, I guess I would imagine in the next 10 days it'll probably be available so you can look at it in advance of the meeting or soon thereafter. Um, but why is this particular piece, as you said, giving you, let's say they give you a dollar amount, let's say it was like, I don't know, $600,000 or what have you. What is going to change, following, as you call it, chaos? Um, of knowing that amount. If, for whatever reason, as you said, there's no guarantee that even if it passes and we go through all this, that you'll actually get that dollar amount. But let's say if argument's sake, they provide it. What
Mhm.
does that mean? What does that do? Why is it important?
Well, so first of all, I think we have a right to know. My best guess is 3 million. My best guess is if you add up, if you take the 1,200,000 or whatever to CEO, and then you look at two law firms that provided advice before this happened. Hicks Morley, I think, was one of them. Forgive me if I misspoken, but I think it is, or Hicks Adams or something. I don't know, something Hicks. That was one of the ones, the labor one, and somebody else drew up the contract themselves. So two law firms provided advice. One of them provided advice that Ms. Horvat didn't like, so she went and got somebody else. That's all in the O'Connor report. And then the money to Diana Miles, the CEO. And then when it all sort of hit the fan, then they literally went out. Somebody somewhere had the idea, oh, well, why don't we have professionals manage our reputation? Like, we're in trouble, everybody hates us. So let's get a professional to do image consulting for us. Now, personally, I'm the most offended by that because 77,000 licensees that they govern had reputational rehabilitation advice for them. And that advice was come clean, show us the O'Connor report, be transparent, be accountable. Just say to us, we screwed up. We are really sorry. We understand why you're upset and angry. We're going to do better. We're going to show you exactly what happened. We're going to try and understand why it happened. We're going to take action and hold the people who are responsible accountable so that it's not just you who's disciplined when there's a problem. We don't just come and investigate you and authorize proceedings against you. We look at what the role and conduct was of the people involved, and we do our best to hold them accountable so that you can have faith and trust in us and confidence in us. That's what they had to do. Instead, they spent unknown amounts of money on a PR firm to work on their reputation. That troubles me. And then after that, what they did was they said, well, we're going to hire a governance expert. So they hired a York University law professor to review their bylaws. And what I say about that is, it's not going to hurt. I'm sure he's a wonderful man with a wealth of expertise, and I'm sure the bylaws will be gleaming when he's done. But how much is that going to cost? And what exactly was wrong with the bylaws? Because when you read the O'Connor report, what you find out is that the bylaws were fine. They were clear as a bell. It's just that people chose to disregard them. They purposefully disregarded them or feigned ignorance of them. But there was nothing wrong with the bylaws. So, how much money have we spent? And just a minute, whose money is it? It's my money and it's your money. So, when you look at their financial statements, you see the amount of revenue they pull in. Multiply 77,000 by $2,500 each that we pay annually to the Law Society just for the privilege of being licensed. You get $200 million or something. My math isn't particularly great, but just our dues that we pay them end up in, hundreds of millions of dollars, just that part of their budget. So it's our money. And I think they owe us a fiduciary duty, and we have a right to know what they're doing with it because I can think of a million things that they should be doing with it that would help the profession, that would help young racialized women stay in the criminal defense work that you heard about when you interviewed Wicked's executive members. I can think of where they can put their money to keep all young parents with new babies and young children who are in private practice within the profession by actually creating a robust parental support program for a period of time. I can think of how they could help us all um, afford an articling student, pay a living wage to an articling student in social justice, where we don't make money doing landlord tenant work or human rights tribunal work. Give us a little bit of money to put toward an articling student's reasonable living wage so that we can have people working in social justice. Don't hire a PR firm to help you crawl out of a hole that you dug for yourself. That's our money. So I want to know exactly how much, and I've asked for it in an itemized fashion. I've asked for each of these bills. And if you think about it, JP, if they've kept their records adequately in the same way as they require us to keep our records, it should not take more than a few seconds to pull those files. Here is the bill from this guy. We paid it on this date. Here you go. In fact, I'm going to invite the treasurer to share his screen during the Zoom meeting with those invoices. You know, there's 6 to 8 of these things that I want to see. I'm happy to add them up on my calculator. They either have those invoices or they don't. They really should. So this is not, I'm not asking for an investigation into anything. I'm asking them to pull the accounts payable or accounts paid invoices and tell me how much. And what difference does it make? I think people need to know because we have decisions to make. We vote these people in. They're going nowhere without the profession. And every 4 years, they come to us, the licensees, and ask for our vote. And they tell us they're going to represent us. And then they get in there and try and manage their reputational damage by paying our fees to a PR firm. You know, that troubles me. That deeply troubles me. And I feel like if they don't start putting their money where their mouth is and behaving in a transparent and accountable fashion, then when they ask for my Law Society fees for 2026, I probably already paid those, let's say 2027, they ask for them early. I'm going to say to them, you know what? My image has taken a hit with all these motions I've had to bring to get you to disclosure or whatever. So this year I'm going to spend that money on a PR firm to help me improve my professional image. And I think they're going to have to say that's fine because that's an important place to spend money, I guess, when you're struggling. So I mean, I'm being a bit tongue in cheek about it, but the point is, this is not any old board. This is our governing body. They have complete power over us. They can come into our office and spot audit us at any time. They decide if we maintain our licenses. They want to bring in initiatives, like they want to put on their web page with our names any charges we may be facing, whether it's criminal charges, whether it's Human Rights Tribunal, whether it's landlord tenant, whether it's CRA. If you're in trouble with the CRA, they want to put that information on the website. These are all initiatives that they are talking about and debating. They have huge amount of power over us. So if we don't trust them, they can't govern us. If they come into our office and say, I think you're in a conflict of interest, and we say, well, this chaos thing stemmed from one of your benchers on the compensation committee who had a glaring conflict of interest. How dare you come in here and threaten my license to practice over something that your own governing members don't appear to have understood or taken seriously. So they have a real problem with the profession, a credibility and reliability problem, and they need to address it. So the way I see it, JP, I am generously providing the Law Society an absolutely beautiful opportunity to be transparent, be accountable, and the best thing for their professional image and reputation and credibility with the profession that they could do, in my view, is simply pass my motion and then disclose the very simple information I'm looking for. And you know what? It would shut a lot of us up. A lot of the people who are upset and angry and concerned and support the motion would say that was unexpected, but it's admirable and thank you for the information. And they would gain back a fair bit of trust that way. Are they going to do it, JP? No, they're not going to do it. You know how I know? Because if they wanted to do it, they could have done it by now. They've had so much notice of my motion, and prior to bringing the motion, I wrote the treasurer and I let the Law Society know that this is the information I sought and that there would be no need for the motion if they wanted to make the information public. So they've had plenty of time and they've chosen not to do it. So I don't think it's coming, but no one would be happier to be proven wrong than me. I would be very delighted to win this one in less than 30 years, 30 days. I would be great.
Yeah, because it's certainly interesting, as you said, even prior to a motion, that going through like line items uh, the annual report, right? I mean, I think that should just be par for the course, right? Is if we look at, they're providing the details, what are the break? I mean, it could be anything, right? I mean, here obviously there's a lightning rod with respect to chaos there, as you term it, but others have raised other points. Like, how come we're spending money on these initiatives and that initiative and the restaurant and what's going on there, and whatever it may be. I mean, how much information are we entitled to as licensees, or should we be entitled to, right? I mean, is there a difference, being essentially our elected board of directors, of what information, us general members, right, should be entitled to knowing and hearing about and breakdowns, um, or do they get to sort of be, do they have to be transparent, or could they just say, well, here's the summary and that's what you get? And what would be the reasons even for not providing that information? As you said, no one's really brought up why you shouldn't get this information, but play devil's advocate. I mean, you're saying, well, I don't think it's going to happen, but why? Why wouldn't they give you that information?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, JP. Like, everywhere I go now, I teach at the U of T Law School. As you know, I teach all over the place. Everywhere I go now, people come up to me and they say, by the way, like, I was gonna have this meeting on September 18, or I had to do this for my kid or something, and I'm trying to move everything because I really want to be there for your motion. So that's actually warming my heart a lot. I don't know whether people will show up. A lot would have to happen to me before now if I wasn't personally bringing a motion for me to attend the AGM, but I've tried to do better, and I've actually watched convocation several months in a row, and it's actually pretty interesting. Um, but why wouldn't they? I don't know. But when people come up to me, they say, I support you, Anita. I'm aware of your motion. And I've talked to my colleagues. Obviously, everyone supports your motion. Obviously, it's ridiculous that they wouldn't. And people say, I can't think of why on earth would you deny this information at all? So everybody's in agreement about that. And then people say to me on the side, very kindly, and I can't fault them for this. It's really sweet. It moves me actually because people care about me. They don't want me to get upset, maybe stroke out. So people tell me, look, you know, it's great you're doing this. Thank you for doing it. I don't want you to be too disappointed, but you do understand you're never gonna get this information. So I think people think I'm naive, and I'll, somehow break down if I'm told forget about it. I'm not expecting the information to come. I think they'll try to weasel out of it any way they can because I think some of this information is going to be embarrassing. I think it's already embarrassing because they're so out of touch with the real lives of our members that somebody sat there and thought over $1 million for a CEO was an appropriate compensation when we're all sitting here making, next to no money working 20 hours a day. They didn't realize that would bother us because those are the numbers they see in their Bay Street law firms. And that's a normal amount of money, maybe even a little bit of money for a CEO to be paid. So they don't get it. Um, so I'm sure they had no hesitation throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars at service providers that we in the trenches will, I am sure, look at a bill for image management and PR advice and be, shocked by these numbers. So, number one, I'm sure they don't want us to know the numbers. I'm sure that one of the things that they'll suggest is that they cannot disclose this information because it's private to the service provider, that they'll be protecting the privacy rights of the GNT Co PR firm. I I think sometimes I feel that our elected benchers and convocation forget who they are governing, and they forget that they are governing actually legal professionals who are not dumb, who are pretty sophisticated, and it's hard to sort of play us and to lie to us. And a lot of the outrage that happened in the wake of the chaos happened when they started messaging that they couldn't show us what retired Justice O'Connor said because it was legal advice. And we all said, well, it isn't. It was an investigative report that you commissioned. But even if it were legal advice, we're all lawyers and paralegals who understand that you can waive the privilege if you were the client that, commissioned that, you retained him. So don't tell us, well, because it's privileged and it was advice we can't tell you. Sure you can. You're the client, if that's what it was. And it took about 10 seconds for the profession to, catch them out on that one, right? And so all of this sort of feeds into a lot of bad faith and a strained relationship between the licensees that they are to govern and convocation who's to govern us. And so, they're going to come back to us for our votes again in 2 years. And I think they're going to find a much more cynical uh, voter market. And I don't know that any of us will be able to trust this collection, the whole of the convocation, unless somebody somewhere shows us a real commitment to transparency and accountability. And they had that chance in June when they voted for their treasurer, and they chose to continue with Treasurer Wardle, and that's the decision they made for their own reasons, who no one will ever know. But they decided to stay with the status quo, and at least to me and to many of my colleagues I've spoken to, that's an implicit endorsement of the way all of this has been handled that I think hurts the chances of everybody currently there of coming back for a subsequent term. That's just my view.
Yeah, so I mean, I think again, getting sort of back to how they run convocation, how much again once you vote for somebody, I mean, is that no, is that any different than whatever Premier Ford or Prime Minister Carney do when we give them the power, right? I mean, how much are we entitled to? I mean, is it any different? I mean, yes, obviously it's a smaller subset, right? 77,000 lawyers and paralegals, of kind of finding that balance of, okay, well, you've been elected, we've given you a mandate based on what you were running for. How much of those sort of little pieces, as you said, they're going to come back and say, well, there's privacy interests or something was discussed in camera and, or is not public for whatever the reason. But what should we be getting, right? If not this point here that, that you're bringing a motion for, what other things in terms of breakdowns as we've discussed? I mean, even you could, in theory, just give us the whole number, right? You don't need to break it up. Well, no, this report costs this much money. This is what the PR firm costs. No, the overall, based on all of the things you're requesting, was X amount of dollars, right? I mean, I don't think that would trigger any, privacy interest if it's broader like that. But I mean, the greater question is, as they might think of, well, why should we give that information to you?
Well, because otherwise it's going to start looking like this. They recognize that what happened here was irregular, unorthodox, uh, outside of what the bylaws, it's a breach of their own bylaws. And I mean, you, you know, you this kind of thing does happen occasionally in other governance structures where, the chair of the board, negotiates and somehow, funnels a bunch of cash to whether it's a CEO or another staff member. You'd have to think about like what happens in the wake of those incidents when it's not the Law Society. But anyway, I think we appreciate that this was a bad thing that happened. And I think what they're hoping is two things. One, that the profession will remember it as a single isolated misstep something that one individual did that was not in accordance with the bylaws some number of years ago, and that individual is now a judge and, out of their control. And so they just want to say, look, this was the one thing. This one thing is the one thing that ever happened, and it happened to be the one thing you know about, but there's nothing else, and that's it. And they're counting on our memories to fade and that we'll forget about it. And I guess um, if they have to answer to the motion and give us those other numbers, that'll give a more holistic picture of the total global associated cost because this one thing wasn't a little thing. And it came with all this other stuff around it before, during, and after. And I think $1 million is a lot, but I think all this other stuff is a lot too. And for me, it's more about integrity, character, and judgment and how you handle the situation. Because an absolutely free way of doing this would have been consistently and clearly messaging immediately from the outset that a terrible thing has happened. The bylaws were breached, individuals were involved. They're going to take action to ensure there's accountability for the conduct of benchers who were involved and there's transparency with respect to the what this is costing the profession and what the plan is to get a hold of and rectify the cultural problems that could have allowed this to happen. But they just kept saying, we're going to look at our bylaws again to make sure this exact thing doesn't happen. And my answer to that is, you don't need to look at the bylaws. We all know what the bylaws say. They say, don't do this. What you have to do is control people to not go outside the rules and think they're above the rules and can get away with bending or breaking the rules because they're benchers in convocation. That's very different from we're going to hire an academic to have a look at what it says and say it better. It says it fine. This is a people problem and a culture problem. So they don't want us to perseverate on this, and I'm sure that the motion irritates those who want to move on and not look back. And I think I'll be accused of, trying to mire them down in this unfortunate irregularity that occurred, 2 years ago. But I think it goes to integrity, character, judgment, how you handle a situation, how important it is to you that licensees have trust and confidence in your ability to govern them, building those relationships with us. And like I say, if they just said, look, Anita, it's X number of million, this caused that, here you go, tell everybody, we'd all go, you know what, that's great. And the problem would go away.
Now, I mean, Anita, I mean, even benchers themselves, right? I mean, there was like court actions taken to get access to information at one point. So, I mean, how much of this is necessarily maybe even in the benchers' hands as opposed to the Law Society staff, right? Who essentially make these decisions about financial things? Because I mean, as you're well aware, there was a whole battle about some benchers, in the previous regime wanting access to information. So, I mean, is this a symptom of a larger problem of who controls the messaging, who controls the access to information? If some of the benchers couldn't get that very information they wanted years ago, I mean, now we're adding a layer like then we should get it. I mean,
Mhm.
what is that a bigger problem here?
Yeah, so I have a vague recollection of all of that. So one of the things about me is I'm really apolitical in terms of like the various groups that, frankly fight with each other within convocation. When I do watch convocation, I'm a little embarrassed for everybody because there's all this personal animus that you can see when they're talking to each other. So I don't spend a lot of time getting mired down myself in the sort of politics of the factions of the good governance, this and the stop, full stop, that. Yeah, I couldn't care less about it. As one of my friend's fathers used to say, there are two sides to every story, and I don't care about either one of them. That's sort of how I feel about the two sides of that argument in terms of a political perspective. But in terms of process, you know, quite frankly, if I was a bencher, if I was elected, let's assume for a minute, alternate reality, I got another handful of votes that I would have needed. I get in there, I'm a bencher in 2011, and I want to know something about the operation of the Law Society, how much this cost, or what the rules are, or what happened, or who did what, whatever it is. And somebody comes to me and says, you're not entitled to that information, I would resign as a bencher. The convocation is made up of benchers. They're governing us. They make the decisions, and the staff work for them. It's not the other way. And it shouldn't be staff making important decisions about policy or practices. They can operationalize the direction that convocation directs them in. But to be denied, if I'm on a board of directors for any organization, and I require a report or information or whatever about what happened, and I sit on a lot of boards. I ask for information all the time. That's my job as a board member to get that information, look at the bylaws, figure it out. Someone told me I can't have it, I would leave.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I know on that point there that I think, now we're adding now another layer, right? Is to say, well, if they're not getting it, then maybe they're going to say, well, we don't necessarily even have it. I mean, do you know if anyone perhaps even has that exact amount
Well,
broken down?
I mean, I don't know. No one has said to me, no one has like communicated with me, and that's probably appropriate. I don't know. I think before I brought the motion, it certainly would have been open to the treasurer to say, I have your email and I have your detailed list of questions, and I either know the information but can't give it to you. I'm sure you'll understand because of privacy concerns or whatever. Or, quite frankly, we don't have that information. To get it, you need to go to the staff member who pays the bills or whatever. Nobody has said either way to me about that. What I will say is good luck to me if they come to my office and say, gosh darn it, what have you done with these trust funds, God forbid? Or what have you done with, it says here you paid $150 for a translator on this hearing. And where's the invoice of the interpreter? And I say, oh, gosh darn it, that's my secretary who deals with that. And we can't, she doesn't give it to me, so I can't give it to you. I really, that kind of stuff wouldn't fly. And if some real estate lawyer misplaced 1,200,000, or, themselves directed that it be paid to the wrong place or whatever, uh, I don't think it's open to any of us to shrug our shoulders and say, it'd be kind of tough to find out that information for you, Law Society, when they ask us, right? So that's the whole thing, is that we can't have these double standards. They are our governing body. If we are expected to have information, documentation, evidence, proof of what we're doing with money, so do they, and it is our money. And quite frankly, I have not heard, and no one can think of any legitimate reason to deny not just me personally, not just because I'm curious and nosy, but the licensees they govern, the public. And all of this, by the way, goes directly to the core mandate of the society to protect the public, right? Because if we lose confidence and trust in them and they can't govern us, then we have a problem with self-governance. We are surely at risk of losing. And the public is at risk from lawyers who become ungovernable because we don't care when they try and discipline us because they've shown us that they can't put their own house in order. So who are they to try and tell us what to do if they won't do it? So, good luck telling me we can't find the receipts, or staff has that and we can't find out what this is costing. I mean, they're presumably voting on taking the action to hire these various experts. And they can't be doing that without quotes about how much these services will cost and getting a range of quotes. I mean, they're fiduciaries. They're supposed to govern themselves responsibly. They're not supposed to hand business out to their friends or family. And I'm not saying they did that, but they're supposed, there's criteria in place for determining who gets these rich retainers to work for the Law Society. So, you know, do they do they have to ask us every time they do something? Like, do they have to survey 77,000 people? Anita, should we hire an image management consultant? And if we vote, electronically to say no, then can they still do it? No, they don't. We elected them for a reason. We trust them to make these decisions. I guess until and unless they make some really, really questionable decisions to skirt and bypass their own processes. And at that point, we say, well, hang on, now show me exactly what you've done since then.
Perfect. So, Anita, thanks so much again for taking the time and explaining everything. Perhaps you have any final words about the motion again, the process, and how anyone who's interested can register to access next week's AGM on the 18th, the time it starts and everything, and if you have it offhand. And thanks once again for taking the time and joining us and talking to us all about it.
So first, just let me thank you, JP, for the public service that you provide during the bencher run. 2 years ago when they were looking for our votes, you did like 70 of these things. You interviewed every bencher candidate. I watched most of those. Since then, the conversations you've had with members of Women in Canadian Criminal Defense and our executive and the Law Society issue, it's a tremendous public service. I'm always grateful for your work. I watch a lot of these videos. I think the paralegals and paralegal students who have access to you and to your work are very lucky, and your colleague as well, and the paralegal town hall work that you are doing. And I think it's wonderful. So I want to congratulate you on that. I hope people come to the AGM. I don't think it's going to be boring. I'm asking them to tell me, how much money they spent. Show me the money. I'm looking forward to it. So it's on Thursday, September 18. It commences at 5:15 p.m. It's online. Anyone can watch the live webcast. You don't have to register to watch, but I really encourage you to register so that you can attend and vote. Even if you don't want to vote, you don't know how this debate will go. Somebody may say something that you find very intriguing or interesting that you want to support, or something you find infuriating where you feel that you want to weigh in and take a moment to speak. And you won't be able to do that if you're just watching on the webcast. So I suggest you go to the Law Society's website, go to the AGM page. There's a page, web page for Annual General Meeting 2025. It lists my motion and it has a little link. You click on it, you put in your name and your Law Society licensee number, and you'll be sent a confirmation and you'll get a Zoom link. So I think you should come. If ever there was, I don't want to say a fun year to attend the AGM because it's not fun. It's tragic what's occurred, and it's really unfortunate that we have to probe this way, and I wish we didn't have to, and I wish this didn't happen, but it did. And this is an opportunity to demand transparency and accountability, and moreover, it's an opportunity for Treasurer Wardle, which is honestly so hard to say. You try and say Treasurer Wardle like 3 times fast. For Peter Wardle and for Convocation and for our Law Society, it is a golden moment and a beautiful opportunity for them to be transparent and accountable to us, the licensees, and to rehabilitate their reputation with us for free.
Thanks again, Anita, and thanks for everyone for tuning in. All the best, and remember September 18th there to join and register so you can vote and participate, regardless of how you may feel about the motion or anything else there at the Law Society. All the best. Take care, everyone.